You are listening to the Two and Out CFL podcast, a proud member of the Canadian Football Podcast Network.
The game starts at 8 o'clock. I got an hour and a half drive after the game. I know nobody cares about my situation, but please.
I care.
Oh, thanks, buddy.
Grab some poutine and a double-double. It's time for the Two and Out CFL podcast.
Now they have to kick it out, and they do!
Every week, Travis Currah.
Does anybody still care about this podcast?
And Brazilian Tide.
Hunters are people, too.
Talk fantasy football. Bring you the latest in CFL news. And sprinkle in a little bit of nonsense.
Are you kidding? This is unbelievable!
Ready, set, hunt!
Welcome to another edition of the Two and Out CFL podcast. Travis Currah and Brazilian Tie. We are a member of the Alberta Podcast Network, powered by ATB. Holy man, I have a whole new respect for people that get up in the morning every single day. I was up at 3:30 this morning. I did the morning show on the radio station, Z98.9 in Red Deer. And, you know, I really didn't know there was a point where you could have too much coffee. I reached that point today. I got the shakes. Like, I feel like a bag of crap. That's dangerous stuff.
You sound like me on Monday morning when I tried to golf. I had the DTs after the wedding week.
Man, I thought you would have been detoxing.
Oh, it was pretty rough the first couple holes, but then I pounded a Gatorade and some waters, and I was good. I sweated a lot of it out.
Oh, you were all good to go then. That's sweat, man. When after that wedding, you laid down and you could see the sweat on the bed sheet.
Oh, it was. I'm pretty sure that the bride's parents had to wash the spare room that I slept in because I was not clean. I was soaked from head to toe, and of course they're farmers, so there's no air conditioning, just a fan and a window.
They are machines. That's another group that I have a whole new respect for. Mm-hmm. I showed up to the rehearsal Friday night, and you're like, okay, we're going to go haul some bales, bud. And I'm like, no, I'm going to hang out with the ladies.
Yep. We sent you to the house.
I'm such a wimp.
We knew you couldn't do it because of your back and your knees and everything, so we gave you a free pass. We tried to make John do some work, and all he had to do was drive the damn truck.
Oh, what else is new?
Oh, he's soft.
Let's talk about Week 8.
Join Two and Out for CFL Fantasy and CFL Pick'em and show Currah and Ty what you got.
They are who we thought they were!
Just click cflfantasy.tsn.ca.
Enough from talking about it. There has to be consequences.
And pick'em.cfl.ca.
All right, we got a doubleheader tonight. Thursday night football. Ottawa, 5.5-point favorites over the Toronto Argonauts. McLeod Bethel Thompson getting his first career start for the Argonauts. The Argos actually swept the season series last year, but these teams were closely matched. 53-49, the Argos outscored the RedBlacks. We go to Ottawa first here. This is big news for the RedBlacks. Kyrie Zebair was seen on crutches at practice. Rick Campbell said it was precautionary originally. I love the paranoid nature of football coaches. Really? You're going to use crutches as precautionary? It's not a thing. Like, don't lie. But Kyrie's is on the 6-game injured list. That is a big blow for that defense. Mm-hmm. Trevor Harris averages almost 20 points against the Argos in his career, though, or in the last few years at least. So maybe he is a nice option if the RedBlacks can get the ball in the end zone, because I don't know how much longer they can keep relying on Lewis Ward as their all-star.
Oh, man. We've said it a lot. Field goals don't win you football games. Well, we were proved wrong on Saturday. That being said, you need to put the ball in the end zone. And he's got 3 really good receivers. Brad Sinopli's clicking along right now. Greg Ellenson averages 19.1 against Toronto. Deontay Spencer doesn't have the best games against Toronto. They still have William Powell. Hasn't had the best success against Toronto, but with their defense being banged up as it is, there could be some big numbers on the Ottawa side of the ball.
Last week, we were made to look like fools a lot of the time. I think you literally said Mike Riley's not going to score the same amount as two players, and then he goes up, puts up over 41 points. So
it's a one-off, though. Let's be honest. He's not going to do that every week.
Yeah, if he does it again, then what?
Then I guess you find a new co-host.
I'm just surprised Manziel doesn't cost $40,000 this week.
Well, you would think he's already won 2 Grey Cups with the coverage he gets.
Oh, man, you'd think he's that Eskimos dynasty in the 80s.
Oh, yeah. Jeez.
William Powell averages 10 points against the Argos over the past few seasons here. The Argo rush defense hasn't been all that impressive so far, but at $700-800, hey, maybe he is a nice option.
Yeah, it's him and Andrew Harris are up there. Andrew Harris or on bye this week, so him and James Wilder are really your 2 high-paying options. In the same game, it depends on what you get for defenses. This could literally be a shootout. It could also be heavily one-sided. I don't see Toronto's offense doing a lot. However, Kyrie Bear being out, I don't know, kind of the running game could be more prevalent for both sides, just with how beat up the 2 defenses are in the middle.
Yeah, I kind of like picking the Ottawa defense in this one simply because they are only right around $3,600. So it's a nice option on TSN CFL Fantasy. Now we have to pay for Brad Sinopoli if we want him in our lineup. He is over $7,000, nearly $1,000 more than Greg Ellingson. You have to assume that Ellingson and Spencer are going to get going soon, and this one kind of seems like it could be the prime candidate for that explosion to happen.
For sure, right? Toronto's defense this year is piss poor, to put it lightly. And Brad Sinopoli has been hot. You don't want to go away from the hot hand. You still want to give him the ball, but Greg Ellingson and Deontay Spencer need to get going at some point. Spencer could be looking at a lot of return yards. If Bethel Thompson can't move that football, there are going to be lots of punts. James Franklin hasn't really done a whole heck of a lot to instill confidence in Trestman, so I think Bethel Thompson's going to, get the opportunity to work through anything that happens for the most part until, maybe it comes down to crunch time or garbage time. But I think early on, Spencer might get a lot of looks in the special teams aspect as well.
Interesting to note, both defenses have given up the exact same number of passing yards, 1,709. So it's right around 285 passing yards a game, but the Argos' rush defense significantly worse than Ottawa's, 126.7 yards a game so far this season. So William Powell is an attractive option there. As for Toronto, S.J. Green did miss practice on Monday with a banged-up knee. He is in the lineup, but, man, a less-than-healthy S.J. Green for what that receiving core already looks like. And McLeod Bethel Thompson getting in there, I have to think that they're really going to be leaning on James Wilder Jr. in here, especially without Kyrie Zebair available.
Well, and with a healthy S.J. Green, what has this offense done?
Nothing.
Right? So, I mean, with Thompson in there, I think James Wilder's going to get a lot of carries, a lot of dump-offs, a lot of safety valve kind of, short little hitch routes where he kind of leaks out of the backfield. This receiving core has not done a thing, really, except for maybe one game for each receiver that's had one good game. They haven't done a whole heck of a lot to help their quarterback situation at all.
I really hope that Martese Jackson continues to get more work in the offense. He got screwed out of a touchdown last week. Still gets the... Hey, I got screwed out of that touchdown too. Still gets the return work. So, hey, he might be a nice, cheap running back option for your fantasy lineup. Who are you picking to win?
I got to take the RedBlacks. Rookie quarterback, guy who hasn't started a game, and a depleted defense for the Argos, already depleted on top of what was already not a very good defense. I just don't see how Ottawa loses this game.
I'm going for Ottawa as well, but they've had this chance before where they get a chance to really take hold of first in the East Division, and then things go wrong. They really need to get some consistency going. And if they lose to Toronto, then I really don't know about Trevor Harris.
Let's be honest, this is a trap game for Trevor Harris.
It seems like it.
Because he needs to have a good game. He needs to come out and be the quarterback we all have seen him be in his hot stretches. But it's a perfect opportunity for him to throw for 180 yards, a touchdown, and 4 picks and lose this football game, because we've seen that before too.
All right, I think this one is probably game of the week, although it might be another wet one in Edmonton. They are 7-point favorites over Chris Jones and the Saskatchewan Roughriders, but it was a big week in Rider news. Last season, the team split the season series, and it was basically a pair of blowouts, wasn't it? Because the Riders outscored the Esks 67-59, but that includes a 54-31 win in Week 10. So both games were blowouts in the opposite direction, and it was a big news in Riderville. We start on Monday. The news coming out that Jerome Messam, Canadian running back for the Riders, has been charged with voyeurism. I've never seen a football player get charged with this, but the league has shown they are going to be real swift and real fast with these moves. His contract has been voided. He's been let go by the Riders. That came, it seemed to me, kind of out of nowhere. It does surround an incident happening back in November of 2016 when he was a Calgary Stampeder, but fans on Twitter are fast to point the finger and blame Chris Jones or blame the Stampeders. There's one person to blame here. I'm sorry, it's Jerome Messam.
I would agree with that. However, Chris Jones would have known about this and still took the chance. That being said, it's not his fault that Jerome Messam did this. Take the chance, get him on your roster, and if he is acquitted or this is thrown out, he's still on your roster. There's no way that they wouldn't have known about this. It's a shot for Chris Jones to take to get Messam in. And you know what? I don't think the offense is going to miss him all that much, if I'm being honest.
There are a lot of people that seem to think that Messam wasn't getting the ball much because of these pending charges.
That had nothing to do with it.
I don't think he was getting the ball much because he hasn't been good.
No, they had the one game where, they used, was it Trey Mason, either Christian Jones and Jerome Messam, and they used them like in the right, they slotted them right, so to speak. Where you had Trey Mason as, he was in there, made a lot of plays when you needed him to. Marcus Sigpen as well, they kind of split carries and, got the job done. And then when you needed the big guy to get in there and kill time and and have the ball security, well, then you brought in Jerome Messam as your closer, kind of like a bullpen. And, that was the only time we really saw anything that looked like the old Jerome Messam.
Elsewhere on this team, Nick Marshall returned to practice. And that is big because Caleb Hawley's going to miss this game. This means that Deron Carter returns to the offensive side of the ball. And what I like about this is he's going to be playing slot back. Now, most of his career, he's been playing wide receiver. You see what happened to Duke Williams when Edmonton moved him to slot back? I think if they keep him at this position, and who knows, he might go back to wide receiver once Caleb Hawley returns to the lineup. But, hey, we got a shot here. It may be a nice game from Deron. Nothing would surprise me from him anymore because you know what? The last few weeks, since he got burned against Montreal, he's actually looked pretty good on defense. He looks awkward when he tries to tackle, but other than that, he did look okay on defense.
And I think that a lot of that, too, is Jones finding a way to protect him. Kind of hides the flaws there with the scheme and, him playing the wide side of the field now. Gives him a little more time to react. That being said, finally getting your best offensive threat on the right side of the ball. And I'm so happy.
You're going to like this too, Brazilian Ty. 7 offensive linemen are on the roster. I am going to assume they're only going to dress 6, but Josiah St. John on the roster. What happened?
I have no idea. I forget who it was, but I saw it on Twitter. They were talking to Chris Jones. Ariel Zer?
Yeah,
sound right? She asked him, how long is Eddie Steele going to be your backup offensive lineman? And he said, forever.
He did, yeah.
That worried me when I read that. I'm like, oh, man, here we go again. At least dress 6, because Edmonton's dressing 6. You know, I would rather have somebody in there who's done it. I know Eddie Steele has done it, but, you know, you're just creating holes elsewhere by, you know, doing that. But yeah, you know, if he's going to dress 6, awesome. If he's drawing Carter on the right side of the ball, maybe he's out of position, but I mean, I think he'll be fine. I'm sure when he's been in practice, he's probably been practicing as a slot back. I don't see why you wouldn't practice him there if that's where you intended to play him. And, you know, finally it looks like, and with Marshall coming back, if he is going to play, everything's starting to come back together what we saw week 1, although week 1 wasn't the best game we've seen them play. It'll be nice to have that starting lineup back together.
Also the big news, Zach Collaros listed as starter for the Saskatchewan Roughriders. They pull him off the 6-game injured list. It is a $50,000 cap hit, so yeah, they are going to play Zach Collaros. Chris Jones also said that Brandon Bridge might be seeing a little bit of time. I have no problem. Of
course he will.
I know, exactly. I have no problem seeing him get out there for short yardage and maybe throw a deep throw on 1st and 10. What I don't like is those stupid red zone packages where they throw in the backup quarterback that the starter drove all the way down the field, and then you throw the backup in for the red zone package. It makes no sense to me. I don't know why coaches do it.
And the defense knows what's coming.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Like if he throws it from the 1, that they can have that. But that team is going to be making sure that Brandon Bridge does not get into the end zone. It makes zero sense to me why you would change your entire game plan to try to gain 1 yard when you had no problem gaining those yards coming all the way down the field. You still have 21 yards because you have a 20-yard end zone. You can still run a lot of the same plays. Just leave your starter in and go for it. You don't have to change that much. The coaches overcoach and they overthink and they beat themselves more than they get beat by the other coach. They just outcoach themselves. And that's an example of that for sure.
We saw it happen in the Grey Cup with the Stampeders. They were doing something similar with Andrew Buckley. And I don't know if the play they called would have worked with Bo Levi Mitchell in that situation, but you live and die with your stars. You live and die with the guys that got you there. So I think if a starter gets you down the field, he should be able to try and get into the end zone.
For sure. We watch basically every sport that there is, right? Between the two of us. If you're watching a hockey game and the Oilers are in a shootout, who's taking the shot? Who's taking that first shot to make sure you get a goal? Connor McDavid.
Well, how about we talk about Team Canada at the Nagano Olympics?
Yeah, okay, yeah. Crawford not picking Gretzky. Gretzky didn't want to shoot, though. I asked Trevor Linden about this. Nobody wanted to shoot. Mariano Rivera, give the ball to your best player. Michael Jordan, right? Give the ball to your best player. Your backup quarterback is not your best player. If he was, he would not be your backup.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? So, I mean, Ray Allen even, LeBron James is the best player on the floor, but Ray Allen's the best three-point shooter, and that's what they needed. Give it to the best guy and keep the ball in his hands.
As far as fantasy goes, I really like either of the Rider running backs, being Trey Mason or Marcus Thigpen. I actually see them maybe giving Mason the ball every down and getting Thigpen in there in the receiving game and as a change of pace guy. And here is why they're not going to miss Jerome Messam. This season, 3.9 yards per carry. Trey Mason, 5.4. Marcus Thigpen, 8. I know he's only got 21 carries, but 8 yards per carry. So, yeah, Messam, you help with the ratio, but they get St. John on there, and they got an extra offensive lineman now, so they're going to be just fine with Trey Mason and Marcus Thigpen, and they provide some nice value at running back.
Oh, yeah, Marcus Thigpen, just over $50,000 or $5,000. Trey Mason, even cheaper than that. It just depends on, what you're feeling for who you think is going to get the more carries. I'm partial Marcus Thigpen because, he's been carrying the load a lot this year for this team. And, it's really hard to get away from that, especially at that value, because he can produce as much as a guy that costs you $8,000.
The Eskimos' rush defense giving up 130 yards a game and 5.8 yards per carry, and they're tied for first in giving up rushing touchdowns as well. So I think Thigpen and Mason could have a big game. Do you see a scenario, Brazilian Ty, where you have Deron Carter in your lineup, $3,763? He could either put up 28 or 2. There's almost no in between there.
Yeah, I'm personally staying away because of the time he has spent away from the offense. I know he's practiced, but I don't know. And especially with Collaros coming back, it's just a new quarterback. I know that they played 1.5 games together. I'm staying away just because of the lack of consistency in the lineup.
And I think he helps Naaman Roosevelt. Maybe not in this game, but definitely as the season progresses, to have Carter back, giving Roosevelt some space. Let's talk about the Eskimos. Justin Sorensen hits the 6-game injured list. That is a tough loss for that Eskimos offensive line. Mike Riley, $14,000. Could we see another 5-touchdown performance against the Riders? I don't know if we do.
I could see 5 passing touchdowns. I can't see a lot of rushing touchdowns. This run defense is so good. Riley only needs 138 passing yards to move into 20th all-time in the CFL, 467 to get to 19th.
Wow.
And so he's going to be in 20th.
You said the Rider rush defense, the best in the league, 71.7 yards per game. So C.J. Gable might not be the running back to roll with this week, although I am still real comfortable with picking Duke Williams. I know he's $8,000, but the guy's getting 100 yards and a touchdown every week. It seems like nobody can stop him. No,
he big body, goes up and he jumps for every ball, even if he doesn't have to. His feet are off the ground. A 50-50 ball, he's winning it 99% of the time. So if you have to find a way, if you can get Mike Riley and Duke Williams in your lineup, good for you. I'm not doing it.
That's over half of your points, and you got 5 more positions to fill. That would be impressive.
But I think I've had Duke in my lineup every week, and this week will be no different.
Who are you picking to win?
I can't believe you're making me do this.
You asked me, do I have to pick a winner?
It's really a toss-up to me because the Riders seem to play well in Edmonton, especially lately, and Collaros, Carter back on the offense, transfer some points. But Edmonton's offense at home is just too good that I think they'll take this one, and Mike Riley will probably be the difference. He seems to put the entire offense on his back and just take over a game. So I got to go with the Eskimos.
It has been a different Rider team in Commonwealth Stadium since Chris Jones joined the Rider organization, because in the, I'm even going to say 25 years before that, the Riders at Commonwealth Stadium has been embarrassing. But since Jones has showed up, he likes to step up for the teams he's been with, and that is Edmonton, that is Calgary. So it might be a close game. It looks like we got a 60% chance of a thunderstorm in Edmonton. Man, please don't delay this game. I gotta be up 4 o'clock on Friday morning. The game starts at 8 o'clock. I got an hour and a half drive after the game. I know nobody cares about my situation, but please.
I care.
Oh, thanks, buddy.
Do you remember when we used to get so jacked up to drive from Lloydminster to Edmonton for a Rider game, and then how dejected and quiet we were on the way home?
But how much food did we eat at the Flying J buffet?
Oh my God! And then have to stop in Innisfree because we're all sick, and then load up with high-grade subs for the rest of the way home.
Dude, that stuff had been sitting there all day by the time we show up at 11:30 and polish it off. But it
was the best.
It is a tradition for me to pick against the Riders when they play at Commonwealth Stadium. If they win, I'm going to be getting the tweets left and right. But whatever, I am going with the Edmonton Eskimos in this one. Before we get to the game that everybody's talking about, got to say thank you to ATB Financial. Of course, we've seen a big movement in the league over the last few years with the You Can Play clothing line, and ATB also supports sexual and gender minorities in youth and adults. So they've partnered with Camp Firefly and the Jasper, Lethbridge, Edmonton, and Calgary Pride parades and festivals. Of course, ATB accepts all Albertans. Make sure you check out atb.com/pride. Friday Night Football. I think the cool part about Manziel starting is that it's against the team that tried so hard to get him to Canada in the first place. The Ticats are 6.5-point favorites, which seems kind of low. I wonder if there's some people betting on Montreal, which,
for sure,
has moved the line in that favor a little bit. Now, the Ticats, as bad as they started the season last year, smashed Montreal in the season series a year ago. They outscored them 76-16. Is that a typo?
I looked. I did the math twice. Now I could do it a third time, and it could change. So I'm just going to leave it at that for now.
That is nuts.
Yeah, it wasn't pretty.
And so Brandon Banks missed practice Monday and Tuesday and was seen wearing a brace on his left knee. He ended up practicing on Wednesday, though. Good news for Hamilton. Luke Tasker, Terrence Tolliver have returned, and it looks like Alex Green will be coming back. The Ticats team really changed last year once they started giving Alex Green the ball and once June Jones took over. It seems like they trust Alex Green, and I think when the Ticats have their running game going, they have their entire team going. So give Alex
Which is something they never had with Kent Austin.
No, that's exactly why people are learning all about C.J. Gable in Edmonton now, because he's a world-class running back in Hamilton, and they would give him 6 carries a game. It was a joke.
Yeah, it was brutal. And when your offense is that one-dimensional, you're pretty easy to stop.
Absolutely. They know exactly what's coming in this one. Now, Jeremiah Mazzoli hasn't had the best success against Montreal in the last few years, but if you look at their defense, they're giving up 299 pass yards a game, and Mazzoli seems to be a 300-yard machine. And as far as touchdowns go, that Alouette defense is giving up pass touchdowns left and right.
They're like red light Rasico. Yeah. Like, we have Mazzoli at 7.9 averaging against Montreal. That's just in games played. I haven't figured out his starter stats yet. I'm working on all of that so we can get a little more of an idea. He is averaging 17.9 points a game this year. That's pretty good. $9,000, I have a real problem paying that much.
I do think we're getting some real value out of Jalen Saunders now. He had 154 yards last week. He's under $6,600. Brandon Banks is banged up. He's averaged 14.2 points this season. So I think he's a nice addition to fantasy lineups this week.
any of these guys that are like Tasker and Tolliver coming back, it's huge. Alex Green coming back, it's huge. This entire receiving core can put up points. Now, I'm not saying they all will put up points, but one or two of these guys everybody in the core has an opportunity to put up a big night, as long as Masoli is the Jeremiah Masoli we've seen, not the Jeremiah Masoli we saw 2 games in a row against Saskatchewan. And I think having Alex Green back will help the pass game.
I think the Ticat defense is probably a popular pick this week. We'll go through our lineups.
Very.
They're in my lineup.
Probably not a bad pick.
Watch Manziel throw for 500 yards.
Right now, I'm gonna wake up in a cold sweat now.
Oh yeah, I'll have a nightmare too. As for the Alouettes, yes, we finally get to talk about a quarterback that's going to be starting. What a novelty. Manziel is the 14th starting quarterback for the Owls since Calvillo retired only 5 years ago. We should try to find out how many offensive coordinators that is, because I bet you it's almost in the double digits too.
I'll find that out and I'll tweet it out later. I'll figure that out. It won't be that hard.
Okay, TJ Heath and Adarius Bowman both practicing for the Owls this week, but Tommy Campbell missed Wednesday's session. That would be a tough loss for that Owls defense if Campbell couldn't go on Friday. Now, Johnny Manziel, $7,000. What did you write on this prep sheet, Brazilian Tie?
Can I rephrase it?
Sure.
If I had 5 words and I was about to expire, they definitely wouldn't be Tron Funkin' Blows.
Oh, that is amazing.
$7,000? Give me a break, TSN.
Okay, here's a bet. So Johnny Manziel is exactly half of Mike Riley. Will he score half of Mike Riley's points?
No.
I'm going to guess no as well.
I think the interceptions might kill him.
We'll see what happens next week. That's going to be a fun one to watch. Now, he doesn't have anybody to throw to. BJ Cunningham is a good receiver, and he's real cheap. He's $4,800, and he averages almost 18 points against the Ticats over the last few years. Maybe he throws to him. Ernest Jackson. This has been a fall for the ages, hasn't it?
He's a good route runner. Just can't catch the ball.
And he won't run his routes fast. He just kind of jogs them.
Yep. It's like Bryce Harper running out a ground ball.
Yeah. I think that's enough of this game. Who are you picking to win?
Yeah. I'm going to take I'm taking Hamilton. Do I even need a reason? Montreal doesn't score, and until they prove that they can, other than the game against the Riders, they're not going to. Hamilton scores over 27 points on the road. Montreal only scores 19.5 at home. So I got to take the Ticats.
One more note on the Alouettes. What were your thoughts on Vernon Adams' comments against or on the fans that were at the Owls game last week? This is tough for me. It's kind of a double-edged sword because, he shouldn't have said it because it makes him look a little immature. But in the same breath, you can speak out the other side of your mouth and say, we want players to be honest. He was honest, and people are now shredding him for it. So I get why he said it. I'd be pissed, too, if I was in his shoes. Yeah. Manziel was going to start the next game. He knew Manziel was going to start the next game unless he did something big. He tried. He failed miserably. The lesson is never try. But I like that lesson.
Like, we've seen teams get booed off the field at halftime, and in Saskatchewan especially, the backup quarterback is always the favorite player. But everybody knew that it was inevitable, that Manziel was going to be starting, and so why not throw him in? It was basically garbage time after halftime. We knew Montreal wasn't going to get much going unless something changed, and maybe Manziel would have been that spark. Who knows? I don't think so. But I get it. He's pissed. I would be too. I have no problem with what he said. He's being honest, and we always get pissed when all we get is cookie cutter answers. That being said, it did seem immature, but I mean, that's how he felt. That's how he felt. I'm not going to fault a guy for it.
Here is the thing that angers me. You know that even if Vernon Adams had a 3-touchdown lead and they were going to win that game against Edmonton, they still would have been crying for Johnny Manziel. So the fact that they don't even care about their team winning the game, that's the piss off to me.
I hope he's good, and I hope he gets a shot in the NFL, and then we don't have to talk about him anymore.
I like that too.
I'm exhausted with it. I'm done. But now we're gonna have to talk about him because he's starting. I hope he sucks. Actually, I don't know what I want anymore.
What does he have to do to be the East MOP nominee? Because really, I don't think he has to do much at this point.
Have a positive touchdown to interception ratio and finish 9-9.
Oh, if he brings the Owls to 500.
Hey, Crompton did it.
Hey, that's true. But Crompton, if he didn't cut his hair, he'd still be in Montreal. I maintain that.
He probably would have won MOP.
Exactly. The power of the hair, man. The Calgary... I'm picking Montreal, or Hamilton too, by the way, sorry.
I would hope so.
Calgary, home to BC, 11.5-point favorites. They outscored BC by 18 last year and swept the season series. For BC, Jeremiah Johnson is good to go, but Brandon Rutley is on the 6-gamer after suffering a torn ACL. That's a rough one for Rutley.
Yeah.
Now,
that's a season ender.
Yeah, this is a big injury for the Lions. Chris Rainey sat out Wednesday, so he's doubtful on Saturday, meaning Trayvon Van could see his Lions debut, but no Rainey. That is a big loss for this team.
Yeah, that's not good. He averages just under 15.5 points against Calgary. Granted, a lot of that's coming on special teams, a little bit of offense here and there, but he's still averaging 13.3 in the last 3 years against everybody. So that is a big loss. He gets a lot of touches, gets a lot of looks. Jeremiah Johnson only averages 6.7 against Calgary, which is just under half of what his normal output is. Trayvon Van 7.1 and 11.5. So I mean, you're losing. If Chris Rainey doesn't play, that's a real big loss for the BC Lions.
Maybe Trayvon Van, he'll come cheap. He probably will get some return yardage in there, but I'm not sure if I like any fantasy option for BC against the Calgary Stampeder defense. They've had the bye to prepare for this week. I just don't know if it's been enough, man.
Yeah, this defense right now is ridiculous. It's not even fair. Lule, in his 2 games this year that he started, has averaged 18 points. I don't know if he even hits that.
Yeah, it'll be tough for Lule to hit it.
The defense might get 18 points.
Yeah, this might be a trap game for Calgary. You know what? It's almost like every game here on out is a trap game, to be honest.
Until week 18, when Bo Levi sits out and Arbuckle has to come in because they want to give Bo some time to rest.
Yeah.
Then it's not really a trap game with the backup quarterback, but they'll still be favored in it.
Yeah, they totally will be. As for Calgary, both Terry Williams and Don Jackson are banged up for the Stamps. Romar Morris had 12 carries against the Riders last week. So if Jackson's not going to do anything and Williams is banged up, there might be some value in Romar Morris this week. BC struggled so far this season against the run, the worst in the league, averaging 135 yards a game on the ground. They've given up 8 rushing touchdowns, second worst in the league as well. But the Lions shut down William Powell for the most part without Solomon Elimimian. So who knows? Maybe they're going to be more focused against the Stamps rush attack this week.
The only problem with, possibly getting Romar Morris in your lineup is that this is the last game of the week. So
yeah.
you could get completely screwed if you try that, because you're going to have to leave room to put either Terry Williams or Don Jackson in, and then you've lost all that salary cap room. that being said, BC did shut down William Powell without Solomon Elimimian, like you said. This Calgary team is a juggernaut, man. I don't know how you stop them.
If you can fit Eric Rogers in your lineup, he seems to be the guy now, along with Duke Williams. If you can get him in your lineup, you do it, because he seems like he's impossible to defend. So if you get him in your lineup, nice. Markin Michel has had good games against BC in the past, but so far this season, he kind of seems touchdown dependent. And if he doesn't get the touchdown, then he doesn't do much for you. Last week, he only had the one catch against Saskatchewan for 41 yards and a touchdown. Maybe he can have the big play again against BC this week. But if I'm betting on a Calgary receiver, I know he's expensive. I know he's $3,000 more than Michel, but it's got to be Eric Rogers.
Has to be. It has to be. He averages 16 points a game. You're going to pay for it. If you have him and Duke in your lineup, you're looking at possibly 40 points between them. And with that, Bo gets those points as well for passing yards and everything. He only needs 363 passing yards to pass Eskimo legend Warren Moon for 32nd overall. So there's another active guy on the list that is going to be moving up. If it's not this week, it'll be next week for sure with this receiving core. There's a chance here for this offense to put up some big fantasy numbers for sure this week.
You're picking Calgary, right?
Yeah, not until I'm picking them until they lose. They've only allowed 11.33 points per game.
Why did you pick against them every week just so you get it right once?
Yeah, because I would love 17 straight losses on Pick'em.
I might pick the Riders on August 19th. We'll see what happens up until then, but now that they're getting more weapons back, hopefully they can get it together by then. We'll see what happens. Let's talk about your fantasy lineup. You like some Riders this week.
I do. The past... Nobody runs a softer zone defense than Mike Benavides. And I think that'll be a advantage for the Riders offense. I got Collaros in there. He's pretty cheap. Second cheapest starting quarterback. Marcus Thigpen and Naaman Roosevelt, because I think Naaman's a target monster, let's be honest. Terry Williams, some special teams numbers, and we'll see what happens with the running back situation there. Duke Williams, Brad Sinopoli, and the Ottawa defense.
How much money did you have left?
I had one. No, I had like a couple. No, I had less than 100.
Less than 100.
You go yours, and then I'll let you know. Here, I'll find it.
Okay, Brazilian Ty, you're going to be impressed with me. I have not touched my lineup since Monday.
I got Connor McDavid dollars remaining. I got $97.
Okay, so my lineup looks like this: Jeremiah Mazzoli, Marcus Thigpen. I take Jordan Robinson from Edmonton.
I had him. I had thought about it.
2 games in a row, the Riders have given up a punt return touchdown. They got him involved on the offense a little bit. Maybe they get some his speed on the offense some more this week. I also got Jalen Saunders, Duke Williams, DeVaris Daniels, and the Tiger Cat defense. I'm betting against Johnny Football this week. $105 left.
That's not bad. I wonder if I put in Jordan Robinson, if I can fit Eric Rogers in somewhere. Now you've got me thinking. Now it's going to be a late night. Good thing all I got to do tomorrow morning is golf.
How many tee times have you had this week? 7?
Well, I could have golfed Sunday, but we all know I wouldn't have made that, so I golfed Monday and this morning.
Nice. And maybe tomorrow.
Well, I guess Monday and Wednesday, and maybe tomorrow. Yeah, we'll see what happens.
Oh, man.
Maybe Friday. Maybe Saturday.
You're having the week of a lifetime.
Well, I don't know. When I was home during the spring, I golfed 6 times in 4 days. That was pretty good. I was pretty sore. I didn't lose any weight because I didn't drive to the course, so I put all that weight back on in Michelob Ultras.
Even the low-calorie Michelobs, eh?
Well, they're not that low-calorie when you drink 15 of them.
We are a part of the Alberta Podcast Network, powered by ATB. Check it out at albertapodcastnetwork.com. And man, there is a podcast for every single topic you are thinking. There's the Mess Hall podcast, which I like the idea of because they talk to comedians about food. I like comedians and I like food. So check out the Mess Hall podcast on the Alberta Podcast Network. We're also a part of the Canadian Football Podcast Network. And Ryan from the Canadian Football Countdown had me. He actually called me the Great Travis Currah for his Week 8 preview show. So look at that. You better be addressing me as the Great.
Yeah, I'll get right on that. I don't know. I'm not doing it. I'm drawing a line in the sand.
So follow them on Twitter at CFC on Mike FM. It's the Canadian Football Countdown in the Canadian Football Podcast Network. Brazilian Taya, I guess I'll see you at the game tonight, man.
I hope so.
If not,
I'll be hard to miss.
If not, I'll talk to you for Monday's show.
Sounds good, buddy.
Yeah, I sit right next to each other, so if I didn't see you there, I'd be worried for you. Drive safe to the game anyway.
I'll try my best. We'll see what happens. I might have to get somebody else to drive me depending on how golf goes.
All right, buddy. Rate, review, subscribe on iTunes. We'll talk to you Monday morning.
Thanks for listening. Find more great shows like this at CF Pod Network on Twitter.